I'm Linda Bree, Commissioning Editor in the Humanities, and I'm here today to talk to Martin Paul Eve, author of Open Access and the Humanities. And what is open access?
Open access refers to the lowering of price and permission barriers to peer-reviewed research. That term barriers comes with some kind of bias there that those who are very fond of the current model might not like. But essentially what this means is making peer-reviewed research freely available to read online and available for others to reuse within specific boundaries. The problem is that it's much more complex than that alone might imply, and there have been a series of resistances to the phenomenon on different fronts. The most obvious one is if you're giving away work as a publisher, how do you cover your labour costs and ensure that your operation is sustainable? So in some forms of open access, new economic models are needed, and that's caused some worry. On other fronts, if you're allowing others to reuse your work, which can come with substantial benefits, such as inclusion in public fora such as Wikipedia, what about the integrity of work? What about the moral rights of the author? So what appears as a very simple premise that it's quite hard to argue with, it would be great if everyone could read work freely online, actually has a great deal of nuance and sophistication that it's difficult to capture briefly.
Open access developed very much from the sciences in the early years, but now it is moving very much towards the humanities, and your book is about open access in the humanities. So what's special about the humanities? How is it the same and how is it different?
This is a tricky one. One of the foremost troubles for the humanities in this region is that they're not special. In fact, they are very much the poor relation of their cousins in the sciences and underfunded. While I've said that some models of open access allow work to be made available in conjunction with a subscription model, the envisaged ideal setup is one where we change remuneration of publishers to the supply side. The problem is that that money is not necessarily actually there in the humanities to do it. And while that remains the case, it's very difficult to make the argument that this will actually be completely feasible, a transition to gold open access paying from the supply side. So that's one of the foremost challenges. I suppose the other challenge is that humanities work is often nuanced and has a very specific reading method. There's a fear of public misconstrual of that work if it's broadly disseminated sometimes, and open access needs to be more than simply just making our work available online. That might not actually do the humanities the biggest favour. We need to think more about public dissemination functions, the value of the humanities through communication and public civic education, and integrate it into a programme there that is not just about bunging stuff online and thinking that this will be valued in its own way. So, in contrast perhaps sometimes to the sciences, I think that the humanities need to think of open access in a broader programme of demonstrating value, although not in a utilitarian way necessarily. We're not talking about business, fueling business and industry here, more about what do we want to achieve from our research? Is it about a broader educated public who value human culture, art and practices? And if so, how do we encourage them to engage with humanities research? Open access is one part of that, it's not the be-all and end-all.
And research in the humanities operates much more through monographs than through journal articles, compared with perhaps the social sciences and the sciences. Does that have an impact on open access too?
The forms of labour that support the monograph are often very different to those in the journal sector. Some parts are the same, so some of the technology for typesetting articles is perhaps input agnostic. You can give it 8,000 words and it's the same as an 80,000 word chunk. But actually the editorial processes, the marketing processes, the discoverability functions are all intensely different in the monograph sphere. The example I always like to give is that if I were to put a copy of my book online without some of the dissemination functions that a press provides, then actually would it be read as much as we're going through those traditional channels even when people pay? So the goal of being read has to be done in conjunction with a balanced effort at actually disseminating and marketing the work and ensuring that those who would like to know about it do know about it so they read it, and making sure that price barriers don't get in the way of that, which is what open access does. So there are different competing interests in making work discoverable and disseminated and readable, and open access has to fit into that picture and realise that actually it's one piece among many, particularly in the book sphere.
So why should people read your book?
Open access isn't going away. It's crucial that all stakeholders involve themselves in the debate and understand the context in which open access has arisen, the controversies that are coming about, and the basic terms of reference for that phenomenon. This book will allow you to participate in those debates in an informed way and shape the future of scholarly communication.